Have you ever had negative thoughts that just won't go away? Or they seem to underlie everything you do? Maybe it's almost like a negative belief that underlies everything you do, and it almost sabotages the actions you want to take. And perhaps you've tried mindfulness and meditation, and that may have helped a bit, but it didn't really help you to step back from them fully, and they're still there and they're still shaping your actions. This is the Teach Mindfulness podcast. My name's Shamash, and I'm talking about a technique called cognitive diffusion and a particular form of that, which is called word repetition. So when we practice mindfulness or meditative practices, what actors discovered is there's 4 different skills that are developed through doing that. And they've discovered that they can be separately cultivated and not necessarily have to be done by meditation themselves. So, the 4 I've talked about, the 4 before: acceptance, cognitive diffusion, transcendent self, and being in the moment. And today we're talking about cognitive diffusion and a specific technique and a way to cultivate that. Now, what do I mean by cognitive diffusion? Well, the opposite of it is fusion. Fusion, imagine 2 pieces of metal and they're fused together. It means they're stuck together. So you and your thoughts are kind of almost stuck together, the meaning of the word and the feeling that's associated with it. That's cognitive fusion, when you're stuck with it. It's when you have a negative thought and you almost don't realize it. A thought like, I can't do it, or I'll never be able to do this, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the thought may be. I'm stupid, I'm an idiot, or these kinds of negative thoughts they're kind of echoes of our past. Someone may have said it to us, or we said it to ourselves, and it's kind of become part of our system. So we're fused to it, and it shapes our behavior and actions. And what mindfulness and ACT is about living a more meaningful life. So we don't want these past thoughts to be shaping our present moment to prevent us from living a meaningful life. And so specific research is done on this thing called cognitive diffusion. Helps you to diffuse from your thoughts. And one technique is called word repetition. So let me talk about that to you. So this was actually discovered over 100 years ago by one of the fathers of psychology, Edward Titchener. And he discovered that when you take a word and you repeat the word out loud, or even in your head, but out loud is good, fast for a short period of time, there's a little bit of a disconnect that happens between the sound of the word and the meaning associated with it. And it creates some inner space so that you're not overwhelmed by the meaning of the word. Let me give you an example. So before we do it for a difficult word that may be associated with difficult feelings for you, take a word like the word apple. Okay, so right now you're listening to a podcast. I'm just saying the sound apple, and you've heard, that sound apple. If you understand the English language, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't understand the English language, this sound apple would have no meaning associated with it. But I want you to think about an apple, and I want you to imagine that you have an apple in your hand, and it's a really juicy, delicious apple, and you've just cut a slice from it, and you can see some of the juices that start to come out already. And notice what's happening in your bodily reactions as I'm describing this. And you take this slice of apple and you imagine bringing it close to your nose, and you smell it. What would that be like? And then imagine taking a bite of the apple. A nice, crispy, delicious apple, and the juices of the apple go into your mouth, and the flavors start to fill up in your mouth, and you can hear the lovely sound of the crunch as you bite this apple, and you chew it, and it fills your mouth, and then you swallow it. Now, me just describing that has made me start to salivate, and the first stage of digestion is happening right now. So this is interesting first point to notice. I'm just saying sounds, and you are creating a meaning from what I'm saying. That's what your brain is doing. And it's also creating the experience as if you're having an apple, which doesn't make any sense. I'm just saying words. I'm just saying sounds. And this is the way our minds work. This is at the heart of the science behind ACT and what we discovered through mindful practice as well, which is that the words can have a power, and almost too much power, and we need to learn to kind of rein it in a little bit. So how do you now? So So when I say the word apple, there's all this meaning and reaction that's created in your mind and body as I describe it. So now we can actually use this technique to diffuse from it. So diffuse is the opposite of fusion. To kind of, just for a while, detach the meaning from the word itself, because it's just a sound. It's apple. It's just two syllables, a and pull. And yet it starts to have all this meaning. So the way to do this, and they've tested how long works best. The sweet spot is 30 seconds of repetition. And they've also tested how quickly, you need to say it about once per second. So I invite you to do this at a time that's right for you, or maybe now. You time 30 seconds and you just keep repeating the word apple, and then notice what happens to the meaning of it, okay? I'll just do it for a little while right now, just to give you an idea. So you just say like this: apple, 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 and hope that's almost 30 seconds. That's probably 15 seconds, but you continue for 30 seconds. Now, already now, my apple started to change. The sound started to change. My mouth started to kind of hurt a bit. I could feel the physicality of saying a word. And when I say the word apple now, apple, it doesn't have so much of the kind of sensory side of the meaning that's associated with the word apple. It's kind of reduced a bit. I realized that the word apple is just a sound, apple, having done that word repetition. So it's a little bit funny, but it's, like I say, it's been nicely tested and it's been found to work 99 out of 100 times for most people. There's a reduction in the connection between the word, the sound of the word, and the meaning. Doesn't mean that I don't know what an apple is now. Obviously, I still know what an apple is, but it doesn't have so much of a pull. And so now you can use this same technique for a thought. Let's say you have a thought like, I'm stupid, and that keeps coming up, and that keeps having an effect on what you do and where you go and who you hang out with and what work you can do. And it's an echo of the past. Maybe somebody called you that when you were young and it's just stuck. So rather than trying to, most people think you need to say I'm the opposite of that or try and think of evidence. You can just take that word, stupid, and you just repeat it for 30 seconds very quickly. Stupid, like that for 30 seconds. You just say it out loud in a place where it's the right place for you to do it. And then notice you'll create a mind space between you and the word. There's some diffusion that happens. You create some space between the word and the meaning. And so the word doesn't have so much of a pull on you. Next time that thought pops into your head, somehow there's a bit more space there, or it doesn't have so much of an emotional tone to it. And so that you create this little bit of space so that you're able to do whatever you need to do. So this negative self-talk that we have can be diffused through this simple and unique technique of word repetition. Now, there's many ways of doing cognitive diffusion. So if you really don't like this, don't worry, I'm going to be sharing some more. But this is a nice example of one form. And how often can you find a technique that just lasts 30 seconds and can actually have an impact of shaping the way you live and what you do and what you can achieve? So don't underestimate that. And you can do this as a mindful teacher in a group too. There may be a certain word that somebody comes up with, and then the group can repeat it for 30 seconds quickly. You could... there may be a sense of a word that the group together has a sense that, this word has a power behind it and we want to diffuse from it. Let's do it together. And the group can repeat the word. Now, as they're repeating it, encourage them to do it a little bit quicker, to say it a little bit more loudly. And it's really interesting to see what effect that it has. So that's word repetition. That's a form of cognitive diffusion. Thanks so much for listening. If you like this and if you want to learn more about these kinds of things, then do check out Teach Mindfulness Academy, which is teachmindfulnessacademy.com, which is our community for mindfulness teachers, where we're doing all sorts of things about building confidence and learning about these things and more. Great stuff. Well, thanks for listening. I look forward to catching you in the next episode, where we're going to learn more about cognitive diffusion.